Mr. Gull intervenes, suggesting that Finley stay behind to check the goods while he and Euliminus accompany Banaza. Meanwhile, the Fox sisters are frantically searching the carriage for their clan's artifact, only finding lemons, which infuriates them. Just as Banaza's group arrives, the sisters recognize them and see that Banaza is holding the fan they are searching for. They sweet-talk Banaza into handing it over, promising not to harm them in return. Just moments later, Finley finishes inspecting all the goods. The shop owner is fascinated by the magical tool and expresses his wish to own one, so he wouldn't need Banaza's help anymore. Finley smiles, knowing the tool is incredibly useful and anticipates that Banaza will mass-produce it in the future. She hopes the shop owner will support them when the time comes. Haya, having completed her task, observes Finley's movements, noting that she seems to be mimicking Banaza. This makes Finley blush with embarrassment, but she doesn't deny it. She admits to wanting to learn from her husband, as her only skills so far are fighting and cooking, and she needs to try harder to fit into the community. Meanwhile, Banaza's group faces a standoff with the Fox sisters, who demand the box containing the fan. Barirosa bravely steps forward to confront them despite being human. The Fox sisters laugh at her courage but agree to a one-on-one fight. Using a magical gourd, one of the sisters sucks Barirosa into it. This shocks Mr. Gull, who rushes to attack but hesitates, knowing Barirosa is a hostage and any rash action could lead to her destruction. Euliminus, at a loss, asks Mr. Gull what the fan, known as the Eastern Fan, is. He explains that it's made from 7 different magical leaves, each with terrifying powers. Though physically weak, the Fox clan's magic is formidable, and if they acquire the fan, it would be troublesome. Banaza tries to use a spell to deactivate the fan. It could work if he had time to analyze each leaf, but there's no time as the Fox sisters threaten to kill Barirosa unless they hand over the fan. Reluctantly, Banaza gives them the box but secretly places a seal on it, stating he won't remove the seal unless Barirosa is released. The 2 Fox sisters burst into laughter, tossing the gourd into the air and immediately breaking Banaza's seal. Holding the fan in her hand, she began summoning wind to attack them. This weak magic was nothing to Banaza, who at this moment only wanted to save Barirosa. The more he questioned, the more the Fox sisters seemed to mock him. They struck Banaza a few more times, but feeling they couldn't overpower him, they tried to flee. However, Banaza had anticipated this and had already set a barrier around the area, ensuring they couldn't escape. Once again, Banaza questioned the sisters, revealing a hint of murderous intent, which finally instilled fear in them. They yelled out the way to save Barirosa. The gourd was a magical item for making wine, just drinking the wine would release Barirosa. However, it contained a potent digestive liquid. Who would be brave enough to save her? It was Gull. Without a moment's hesitation, he consumed the corrosive liquid and spat Barirosa out. She was nearly dissolved by the liquid, becoming extremely disfigured, but Gull didn't care at all. To him, she was a brave knight, willing to protect her friends, and there was nothing shameful in that. He then reminded Banaza to do what he needed to do, not worrying about him. Barirosa was free, meaning their contract was fulfilled. The Fox sisters asked Banaza to let them go. Technically, the contract was complete, but they had coerced Banaza's group by taking a hostage, so he wasn't obliged to comply. Banaza began attacking them continuously. The sisters, able to fly, easily dodged his attacks. However, Banaza's relentless assault, without any sign of energy depletion, terrified them. They couldn't break the barrier surrounding the area, so they had to face Banaza. One sister transformed into a fox for the other to ride. After a few exchanges with Banaza, they realized his magical knowledge was limited, not fully utilizing his immense magical energy. They then created countless illusions to attack Banaza simultaneously. For the first time since arriving in this world, Banaza felt uneasy, unable to distinguish the real sisters from the illusions. By the time he realized the attacks were just a distraction, the sisters had disappeared from his sight. However, the barrier around the area remained, preventing them from going far. Banaza was determined to find them soon. But Banaza had to pause and reconsider his combat strategy. As the Fox sisters pointed out, his knowledge of magic usage was indeed limited. Moreover, his power was so great that he always had to be cautious not to harm those around him. If he used purifying magic, Gull and Euliminus might suffer too. He needed to find a different kind of magic to stop the sisters. After pondering, Banaza decided to use wide-range ice magic, freezing the entire area within the barrier. The Fox sisters, hiding in that area, were instantly immobilized. Their game of hide-and-seek was over. Banaza retrieved the fan from them, only to turn around and see Euliminus crying terribly as Gull was weakening from the digestive liquid. Euliminus's healing magic wasn't enough to save him, only Banaza could do that. After a quick system check, Banaza realized that even he couldn't completely heal Gull in this condition. It seemed like he had to reverse time like he did for Funli. But Haya had warned him not to use that magic again, as it violated the rules of this world. But Banaza couldn't hesitate now, Gull's life hung by a thread. Ready to face any consequences, he prepared the time reversal magic. Just then, a voice rang out, belonging to the god of this world. The voice interrupted Banaza's magic. The god didn't need to explain much, as Banaza knew where it was coming from. The god reminded him not to overstep his bounds, reversing time to save one person was unacceptable. Banaza tried to argue, but the god wasn't interested. Gull might no longer be the demon king, but his death would benefit humanity. Why couldn't Banaza accept this truth? At that moment, Barbarossa regained consciousness and, seeing Gull in critical condition, her face turned pale with worry. The god laughed mockingly at Barbarossa, calling her incredibly fortunate as her life was exchanged for Gull's death. Banaza had heard enough. He immediately created a barrier to block the god's interference and reassured the others that he would surely bring Gull back. Focusing intensely in recalling what Haya had taught him, Banaza understood the concept of the magic this time. He reversed the flow of time within his barrier's area. The Fox sisters, affected by the reversal, hastily fled, knowing they stood no chance against Banaza. Gull was now healthy again. Barbarossa, in tears, scolded him for risking his life for her. Gull laughed and clarified, saying there was nothing wrong in risking his life for someone he loved. His sudden confession made Barbarossa blush, and what about Euliminus? She had confessed her feelings too while Gull was dying, and he had heard everything. 2 wives at once, Gull found this quite interesting. Back at home, Haya was scolding Banaza, who didn't seem too concerned. He was ready to face the gods to save his friends, believing that together they could overcome anything. Meanwhile, in the divine realm, Sebua, the deity overseeing Sebua and Marouan, was furious. One time could be overlooked, but Banaza had done it twice. They couldn't ignore it any longer. Sebua ordered a servant to descend to the lower world, to monitor Banaza and prevent him from using forbidden magic, and in the worst case, Sebua would personally punish him. The Fox sisters, fleeing for their lives back to the demon world, realized their plan to seize the fan and claim the demon king's throne was now impossible. Facing a human who could use time magic, they stood no chance against Banaza. They had to find another way. Upon returning to their territory, they encountered another misfortune. A blonde-haired hero was rampaging through their tribe. He and his maid had sneaked into the castle, stealing several items, including the mad armor. Wearing it, he became incredibly strong, unstoppable by anyone. After destroying everything in the area, the armor lost its power, and the hero came to his senses. Terrified, he immediately used his divine shovel to escape. The armor's sudden failure was due to Sebua's subordinate, Talia, who had intervened, saving the hero and then returning to her mission. Talia teleported to Banaza's area, observing him from above. At that moment, Banaza and Funli were out buying meat, enjoying themselves when Haya ran up to warn them. They were being watched, and Haya asked for Banaza's permission to immediately eliminate the watcher. Banaza, however, didn't want to do that, sensing no malice from the observer, so he decided to let them be. Instead, Funli handed Haya a stack of advertisements to promote Blossom's new store, which was having its grand opening today. The store, offering homegrown, fresh vegetables, was already attracting a crowd. While Blossom sold vegetables, Funli had brought another item. When asked by Banaza, she became shy, and Gul had to reveal it for her. Funli wanted to sell lemon cakes she had baked herself. The aroma attracted everyone, and without needing any promotion from Banaza, people flocked to try Funli's cakes, leaving satisfied smiles on their faces. Thanks to this success, Funli gained the confidence to promote her cakes to others. Left with only Banaza and Gul, Banaza shared his goal upon coming to this world. It had been a year, and he had now achieved his goal of becoming a merchant, opening a store where everyone, regardless of race, could shop without discrimination. Though the idea might seem a bit unrealistic, Gul fully supported Banaza. For the store's opening, the Barirosa group brought a bouquet of flowers as a congratulatory gift. Remembering he had a gift too, Banaza gave Bellano a beautiful pen, knowing she had completed her course and would start teaching the next day. The pen would be very helpful for her, but Bellano fainted, overwhelmed by the thought of her new job. Standing in front of her classroom, Bellano tried to compose herself, holding the pen Banaza had given her. She promised herself to conduct the lesson well and not disappoint him. Overwhelmed by the pressure, Bellano unintentionally sat at the back of the class, remaining silent until someone pointed out she was the teacher and should be at the front. Gathering all her courage, Bellano stepped up to the podium to start her lesson. Meanwhile, Blossom and Burilai were preparing a new batch of vegetables to take to the market. Under Euliminus's orders, Greenlee was there to help them transport the goods. In return for her assistance, Burilai generously paid her, following Banaza's advice that everyone deserves fair compensation for their efforts. After finishing their tasks, Blossom quickly returned to her garden, while Burilai was ready to indulge in her post-work hobby. Entering her room, she found Haya sitting there, holding a secret book that Burilai had hidden. Embarrassed, Burilai tried to retrieve it, but Haya refused to give it back. The book was about how to charm men, a rare document Haya had always wanted. Meanwhile, in the living room, Banaza and Funli were with Gul's group. Since the last incident, Barirosa had become somewhat less wary of Gul. Observing this, Funli teased her relentlessly until Banaza intervened. The main reason for gathering everyone today was for Banaza to understand more about the conflict between humans and the demon race. Of those present, Barirosa had the best understanding of the human world. In fact, the current queen had requested Banaza's help to transport food to the Almo forest, where the tension between humans and demons was escalating. Food was vital for the army, and Banaza didn't want them to starve on the battlefield. However, if he agreed to the princess's request, it would greatly harm the demon race. Therefore, Banaza had gathered everyone to propose acting as a neutral third party in the conflict, aiming to help humans and demons coexist peacefully. Euliminus immediately rejected this idea, arguing that the only reason for peace in this area was Banaza's formidable strength protecting them. The demon realm, ruled by the strong, would never accept such an unreasonable request. Gul, however, was more insightful. He understood that Banaza intended to act as a protector, preventing humans and demons from invading each other. If successful, they could maintain peace for both kingdoms. Once again, as the head of the family, Banaza hoped Gul would help with this matter, and of course, he agreed. The group immediately set off, with Gul and Euliminus commanding the battlefield, Haya handling the goods, and Banaza and Funli infiltrating the demon's base. Now, their mission begins. A few days earlier, Queen Elizabeth had invited Banaza to her castle to thank him for his recent assistance. After learning about Banaza's small shop, the queen offered him a very advantageous deal, transporting food supplies to the northern front lines. This condition was easy for Banaza, but before accepting, he had some questions for the queen. As the leader of his nation, Banaza wanted to know what it would take for her to agree to a ceasefire with the demon race. Meanwhile, at the eastern outpost of the kingdom, the soldiers had not yet received reinforcements, significantly dampening their morale. Since the crown princess took command, the battle tactics against the demon army had changed a lot. While more effective than the old ways, the demons had also learned to counter these tactics. Just as the soldiers were wondering what to eat, Barbarossa's group arrived. The commanding general, Mac, had heard about the princess's elite unit, so he didn't suspect them too much, until Barbarossa handed over a ceasefire letter written by the princess herself. General Mac couldn't accept this, questioning how a small group with a letter could prove it was genuinely from the princess. To prove her innocence, Barbarossa produced a world map taken from the royal castle and a water mirror technique for long-distance communication. Whatever they could see, people in the capital could see too. Additionally, Banaza and Funli were holding a piece of the water mirror. Barbarossa pointed to a light on the map representing Banaza, indicating his proximity to the demon race. General Mac recognized this immediately. The enemy commander, the lion-like Sleep, was known for his strategies, which explained the demons' varied tactics. Sleep and Banaza faced each other, maintaining their old demeanor. Banaza asked him to withdraw his troops back to the demon territory. Sleep, realizing Banaza's immense strength and knowing he might not win in a fight, still couldn't retreat due to his proud warrior nature. He released the power seal on his subordinates, preparing for an attack. Banaza responded with a high-level purifying magic circle, which, with just a bit of his magical power, could instantly erase the entire demon army. However, Banaza wouldn't do that. He withdrew his magic circle, assuring Sleep that the peace he spoke of was his true desire. Before Gul became the demon king, each time a war was about to begin, he had to visit the human world to gather intelligence. Sleep had often volunteered to go in his place, but Gul, not wanting to continue the war, went himself to understand more about the human world. Gul's father was too brutal, and for Gul, sacrificing his own kind for small gains in the human territories was not worth it at all. Back to the present, despite Banaza's efforts to persuade him, Sleep remained unconvinced. First threatened with purifying magic, and now offered peace, Sleep vowed to tear Banaza's throat before being burnt by the magic. As he lunged to attack Banaza, Funli stepped in to stop him. This caused great panic among Sleep's demon legion, but he quickly shouted to calm them, asserting that Banaza would keep his promise not to use the purifying magic on them. However, if they retreated now, the demons would forever be haunted by the fear of Banaza's power, a situation Sleep found intolerable. But Banaza calmly advised them, not forcing them to retreat without any benefit. He promised not to let humans step further into demon territory, a condition that made Sleep reconsider. Sleep needed one more assurance from Banaza: if the demon army withdrew and humans advanced even a little, it would bring the demons close to extinction, and Banaza would not help them in that case. Banaza firmly promised on his honor, stating he was just a normal human who loved peace. He believed fighting brought no benefit, only destruction, and he would stand to end such a meaningless war. Banaza's straightforwardness reminded Sleep of Gul, who shared similar thoughts, leading him to accept Banaza's request and withdraw his troops. General Mac, witnessing all this, was requested by Barbarossa to retreat as well. However, he ignored her, seeing it as an opportunity for a human counterattack. This infuriated Gul. Without displaying his power, they wouldn't fear him. Gul released his demonic energy, causing all the human soldiers to fall before his might. Once again, Gul reiterated that their goal was to end the war. If the humans cooperated, he and the others would help them, but if not, they knew the consequences. While Banaza and Funli were walking back, they suddenly came across a naked girl lying unconscious in the forest. After waking her up, Banaza kindly offered her some grilled skewers. They found out that she was Wine, a fire dragon. She had gotten separated from her flock in a panic. Given that she was a dragon, she must still be very young. Since Banaza and Funli had rescued her and treated her to a delicious meal, Wine accepted them as her adoptive parents. Uegard was furious that Sleep had withdrawn his troops. Sleep returned, justifying his retreat with the imminent threat of widespread purifying magic and his unwillingness to sacrifice the lives of his subordinates. This only angered Uegard more, who believed that sacrificing lives was a soldier's duty. Sleep, not wanting to argue with Uegard, excused himself and left, regardless of the punishment Uegard might impose, including cutting off all support for his troops.